Did Jesus really rise from the dead? I guess I'm done then, if y'all already know the answer. Is this just a story that some people made up in the first century? And like a lot of other stories, it became larger than life. I mean, there are many parts about Easter that we don't really believe in, right? We don't actually believe things like Easter rabbits that lay colored boiled eggs for kids to find out in the yard. What is that all about anyway? Nobody believes any of that's true. And nobody believes that finding Easter eggs will make any difference to your soul after you die. And yet still, that's a big part of Easter today, isn't it? I know lots of churches that had Easter egg hunts. It's a big part of Easter. Peeps are a part of Easter. Well, if we don't believe in that stuff, why do we place such an emphasis on a man that was crucified 2,000 years ago? Many people were crucified. That was Rome's method of execution. Is that just another wild, unbelievable tale, story made up to... So you can comfort your kids when somebody dies and you say, well, he'll rise again. You'll be able to see him later. Maybe you've wondered about these things yourself. Maybe at another time in your life, or maybe now. I mean, this whole thing about Jesus, this story that we tell around Easter, seems pretty unlikely, wouldn't you say? Books have been written about this, about these arguments about Jesus, arguments against Jesus and for him. If you're interested, we can talk about that. You can come to me. Here's a couple that I just thought of. One on the left, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, was written several years ago. And if you'll read that, you'll be astounded by the proof. The Case for Christ, written by a reporter. Josh McDowell wrote the one on the left. He was an atheist, and he set out to record all the evidence against Jesus and became a Christian. Lee Strobel was a reporter who was trying to give the facts. So there are books out there. You don't have to totally just trust the Bible. I mean, somebody can say, well, why should I believe the Bible? It's an old book. Got several of them in my house. They lay around. They're dusty. But believe this. If you will do the research, you'll find that there's more evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ than there is for the existence of William Shakespeare. And who doubts him? There's more evidence for the resurrected Christ than there is for Emperor Diocletian or Julius Caesar. And yet we believe them, don't we? There are some who have advanced various theories about Jesus. They've said, well, he wasn't really dead. I think the Roman centurion probably knew a dead man when he saw him. They've said that the disciples came and stole the body out of the tomb so that people would think he rose. It's been said that all of this stuff about Jesus is just symbolism. It didn't really happen. It's just symbols to teach us to be better people. Some have even suggested that Jesus never lived. But there's a really serious problem with those objections. Jenny and I were watching a TV show a few weeks ago. It was about some cops and arresting people and lawyers and courtrooms. And they kept talking about the importance of eyewitnesses when people go to trial. Eyewitnesses. Eyewitnesses carry a lot of weight in a courtroom. So maybe we should have a trial with Jesus. Oh, wait a minute, they did, didn't they? He was put on trial. He was tried in a Roman court by Roman authorities around 33 AD. And the final result of that trial was that the judge said this: Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." In other words, I can't find anything wrong with him. He's innocent of everything you say. But you see, there was this powerful political party, we call them the Pharisees today, and a group of religious fanatics, we call them the Sanhedrin, and they wanted Jesus out of the way, and it was a pretty simple, understandable reason why they wanted him out of the way, because they were losing popularity and power. Masses of people were turning to Jesus and following him and rejecting the authority of these powerful people. And you know what happens? That hurts the old pocketbook. That's what it's always about, isn't it? And it hurts their ego. So they found a way to convict him. John chapter 19. Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law. We made up a law. We wrote this down because we're powerful. We wrote this down in our book. We have a law that he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. And he went back inside the palace and said, "Where do you come from? Who are you? Where are you from, Jesus?" They're saying you're from heaven. Jesus gave him no answer. Well, there have been people who've claimed things down through history. Muhammad Ali claimed to be the greatest. Charles Manson claimed to be the Messiah. Jim Jones said he was God, and he convinced about 900 people to drink his Kool-Aid and commit suicide, poison themselves. Mao Zedong, Stalin, and Hitler all imagined themselves to be something great, and they slaughtered millions of people. But no one ever went to a cross to die for somebody else's sins. Can you believe these fantastic claims about Jesus Christ? After all, have you ever been eyewitness? You ever been eyewitness to a man who was blind, suddenly able to see? How about a lame man rising up to walk? Have you ever seen a man walk on water, calm a storm? I mean, imagine that. Jesus, he's asleep in a boat and there's a storm raging, and the fishermen in the boat who know something about boats, they're scared. They think they're going to capsize. And they wake up Jesus, and he goes up to the helm. I don't know anything about boats. Is the helm the front? The bow. He goes to maybe he went to the helm. I don't know where he went. He stands up and he goes, "Peace. Be still." And the wind stops, the rain stops, and the waves just die down. Have you ever been a witness to somebody taking 5 biscuits and feeding 15,000 people with it? I have not. How about this? And this is the greatest one of all. Yeah, blow the trumpet. I'm ready. Blow the trumpet. Let's go. The greatest one of all. Have you ever been a witness to anyone who was sinless? Now, I've known some pretty good people. And you have too. But have you ever known anybody that was sinless? I mean, here's this guy and you think he's a really good guy. And then you see him lose his temper. It kind of blows your theory about him. Or this lady, and she gets all upset, has this attitude. Have you ever known anybody that was sinless? Of course, whether you have witnessed any of these things means very little, right? I mean, I have never witnessed a train wreck. Eileen, I know you have, but anybody else? I've never seen the Grand Canyon. I've never seen a bullfight. Never seen a star explode. I've never seen the wind. Some things, you see, are taken by faith, not by sight. Some things we believe by faith, not because we've been an eyewitness. But because I've never seen a bullfight does not mean that one never happened. I mean, I've seen them in movies, right? You've seen that on a TV screen. A movie, there's a bullfight. Of course, then we can argue that that was made up by AI or that was just trick photography or something. And we can argue these things, but after a while they reach a point of absurdity. But all these stories about Jesus, how could they be true? The calming of the storm. He just spoke, "Be still." It's interesting that in the accounts of Jesus being on trial in the Bible, the Pharisees, who were his major enemy, the major opposition to him, try to follow this. They never attempted to prove that Jesus was not the Son of God. You were still with me? They didn't try to prove that. They only declared, they just said it, that it was blasphemy for him to say that he was the Son of God. And they could execute someone for blasphemy. Their argument was that since they believed that follow this through. They believed that nobody could possibly be the Son of God. So they had already made their box. And because they believed no one could be the Son of God, if you said you were the Son of God, you were a liar. And so you're guilty of blasphemy. You follow that argument? That was their argument. And eventually he was convicted because he said he was the Son of God. On the other hand, Jesus never really argued with them at all. He never really defended himself. He didn't try to convince them that he was who he said he was. He simply said this. Matthew chapter 12. He said, "A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign. None will be given except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and nights in the belly of this huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." In other words, Jesus, he didn't argue with them. He just simply said back to them, "I will show you who I am." So it all comes down to this one event. Everything. It all comes down to this one event, the resurrection. Jesus, who was the Lamb of the Passover, and we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, the Lamb of the Passover that would bleed and cover the doorposts so the death angel would pass over. If you understand what that means, Jesus, the Lamb of the Passover, who was the perfect Son of God, who went to the cross and suffered for what has been called the most cruel death that a person can die. Now, don't misunderstand. His death, I know you wear these crosses around your neck, and they're symbolic. I understand that. I'm not critical of that. But don't misunderstand, the cross you wear around your neck, it's nothing like the cross that Jesus was on. This cross is smooth and gold and shiny. And the other one that he was on was rough and rugged and bloody. The purpose of his death was to pay for the sin of anyone who would choose to follow him. The purpose of his death actually was to provide justice for sin of all humanity. And since he had no sin, his death could pay for yours and mine. I can't pay for your sin because I got my own. But he could pay for yours because he hadn't done it. He had no sin. His death could pay for us. The brutality and the cruelty of the cross, that was just Satan putting icing on the cake. Just Satan's way of venting his anger and rage against his master. When Jesus poured out his blood, as the song we heard in the beginning, every drop, he poured it all out, every drop. God accepted that as judgment for all sin of anyone who would choose the way of Christ. The cross, I realize these are pretty graphic, but it's important. It's important to understand. The cross shows the depth of our sin. It shows how hideous our sin is to God. You can't say, well, I haven't been that bad. My sins weren't that bad. Well, what I've done is, you can't say that. Look at the cross. The historians of that time tell us about crucifixions. And I won't go into the whole thing, that'd take a while, but after Jesus had been beaten and scourged and all kinds of things, he was whipped with a whip that had 9 leather thongs, long thongs. The law permitted them only to give 39 lashes. I think Roman law may have differed. So anyway, this whip with these long leather thongs, 9 of them, and they had pieces of bone and metal, sharp and jagged, embedded in the leather, so that when they stretched him up and whipped him, those pieces of bone and metal would dig in and rip the flesh. And the historian of that time says that a person who went through this, their flesh, their body was basically reduced to hamburger. Then take his cross, go to Calvary, and be crucified. You want to say, well, my sin's not been that bad. And I know we do that as human beings because we see somebody who commits mass murders and we say, well, I've not been that bad. But don't deceive yourself. Look at the cross. However, that's enough about the cross. Because without the resurrection, Jesus was just another man that got crucified. If he didn't rise, you probably would never have heard of him. And that was his answer to the Pharisees. 3 days. I'll show you who I am. That was his answer to the Sanhedrin. And that was his answer to Pilate and his answer to Rome. And that was his answer to every other religion. And that was his answer to you and to me. I'll rise. My son is a funeral director, and he told me last week, he was pretty excited about it. He said he's going to be taking a body up to Arlington National Cemetery for burial. And he was excited to be involved in something at the National Cemetery. Well, you can visit Arlington, and you can visit cemeteries where, like, Muhammad Ali is buried, and Mao and Stalin and Hitler. I guess Hitler, I don't know if he's buried. You can visit places where presidents are buried. You can visit places where Joseph Smith and Buddha and the leaders of all the religions where they're buried. Well, not Krishna, because Krishna, somebody was hunting and thought he was a deer and they shot him with an arrow. And that made everybody mad and they burned him up. There's no dead body. There's no dead body with Christ. There's no place to visit the tomb. We're not even sure. If you go to Israel, they'll say, well, we think this was it, or this might have been it. That's the difference. He's the one that rose. 3 days. That's my sign. I can't cover us all in one short sermon. Can't give you all the references. But as Billy Graham said hundreds of times, the Bible says. And it says this. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 15. What I received, Paul writes this to the church at Corinth. He said, what I received, I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures. Scriptures. It had been prophesied for hundreds of years. That he was buried and that he raised on the third day according to the Scriptures. He appeared to Peter and then to the 12. And after that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living. Paul wrote this 30 years afterwards. Though some have fallen asleep. And then he appeared to James. And then to all the apostles. And last of all, he appeared to me also as to one born out of time. If Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless. So is your faith. More than that, we're found to be false witnesses about God, for we have testified that God raised Christ from the dead, but he did not raise him if in fact the dead are not raised. If the dead are not raised, Christ has not been raised either. And if Christ has not been raised, your faith is futile. You're still in your sins. How do I know that Jesus is real? How do I know that he rose from the dead? Because he's forgiven my sins. And I can tell you when that happened. And it was even before some of them were committed. He called me to preach. What a waste of a life if Christ is not risen. Colossal waste. Every person who claimed to be forgiven would be wrong if he is not raised. Every person through history who have believed in Jesus would be wrong. But I have known some people that I can't believe they were wrong. I've known some people whose lives demonstrated that they were strong believers in a resurrected Lord and whose prayer life reflected that they believed he was alive. And I can't believe they were deceived because I knew those people. They were too smart for that. Paul said, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. In other words, we're not going to physically die. Some will not. Those who are alive when he comes back. In a flash, the twinkling of an eye. Flash. Twinkling of an eye. They say that's like a millionth of a second or something. At the last trumpet. I thought they were blowing it a while ago out in the parking lot. The trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised, and we will be changed. The perishable, this body, must clothe itself with imperishable. We receive eternal bodies. The mortal with immortality that will not die. And when the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable and the mortal with immortality, then the saying is written that will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, death, is your victory? Where's your sting? I've attended, you have too, and I've presided over quite a few funerals in my life. There is something different. Maybe I can't put my finger exactly on it, but there's something different about doing a funeral for people who have devoted themselves totally to Christ. Those who have served him for all their lives with their whole being in ministry to others, proclaiming the gospel. When they leave this world, they leave a legacy that demonstrates a different kind of life than those who die without Christ. Something's different. You can know the living Son of God. After the Sabbath at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. They thought he was gone. And there was a violent earthquake, an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. I think this is the funniest thing. Here's this massive, massive rock that's rolled in front of the tomb to block it. Takes a whole group of men to be able to roll it out of the way. This angel comes out, just flips it off to the side and sits down on it. And he's sitting there laughing, I guess. He's just laughing. You think you're going to keep him in there with that rock? No. And he's just sitting there on the stone. And his appearance is like lightning. His clothes were white as snow. And the guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. That's just funny. I can just picture that angel sitting there grinning. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus. He was crucified, but he's not here. He's risen, just as he said. Come see the place where he laid. Come here. I want you to look. The napkin that they put over his face, it's laying right there. You can still see the blood on it. The swaddling clothes that he was wrapped in, they're there. They're empty. They're just laying there. He was here, but he's not here. He's risen. And go quickly and tell his disciples he's risen from the dead, and he's going ahead of you to Galilee." See, the crucifixion burial took place at Jerusalem. Galilee's up in the northern part of Israel. It's some miles away. There you will see him. Now, I've told you. That's all I'm going to say. So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid, and yet filled with joy. Now, explain that. How can you be afraid and filled with joy? This angel scared them out of their wits. And yet in their hearts, somehow they knew. And they're filled with joy. And they ran to tell his disciples. And suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. And they came to him and clasped his feet. And they worshiped him. And Jesus said, "Do not be afraid. Go tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The apostles were told, go to Galilee to meet Jesus. Where do you need to go to meet him? I went to an altar in an old country church. Some have gone to a youth meeting and met Jesus. Some went to a church revival service or a Christian rally or a Billy Graham crusade. Some have met Jesus by reading the Bible and had an encounter with him. Some have had a traumatic experience, maybe an accident or a tragedy. In the midst of that, they turned to him and found him meeting them. Maybe there's something in your past that's blocking you. Maybe something in your mind prevents you from really knowing Jesus. Maybe you get so caught up in the pressures of this world, the processes of society that keep us running around like a bunch of crazy people. Maybe you think, I don't have time to meet Jesus. Maybe you don't have time to go to Galilee. Wherever it is, he's alive. And he's there. And he wants to meet with you. Meet with him. Father, draw us to yourself. May we meet with Jesus in a life-changing way, and may we continue that day by day. In his name.